Hi, my name's Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And I'd like to go through this novel published in 1958, looking at how the plot's put together in terms of its structure, as well as some of the themes that crop up in this book. It's about a man's tragic failure to accept and adapt to life under colonial rule. It's set in the 19th century in Western Africa, Nigeria. Now the title is from Yeats's famous poem, The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot see the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed on the world. And you very much get the sense that the protagonist in this novel, Okonkwo, his name is, get the sense that his whole world is falling apart around him with tragic consequences. The book really is in three parts. The first part paints a portrait of Okonkwo, his family life, his pride in his farm, and his standing in the village of Umuofia. It describes a bit about the justice in this 19th century Western African district, in terms that a girl's been murdered in a neighbouring village, and to ensure justice is met, a boy is taken hostage from the neighbouring village, and he's brought up by Okonkwo, and they get rather close. He treats him like a son, but despite that he's duty bound to kill him. It's a very tragic part of this opening section of this book, this opening act of this book. And Okonkwo, somewhere in his soul, knows that he's done wrong, or being part of the killing of this boy, but he feels that he needed to do it to assure his standing in the community, and for his own sense of pride in who he is. Then one of his daughters becomes ill. There's some healing ritual with a priestess who takes her into this cave, and Okonkwo and his wife, he's got a few wives, but this one, they wait for the healing of their daughter. He's particularly fond of this daughter. Her name's Izinma. And at the end of this part, Okonkwo inadvertently kills a youth during a wedding feast. And as a consequence, he's exiled from Umuofia, and he has to go for 7 years to the village where his mother was from. So part two is about Okonkwo in his mother's village, and he settled down. He started to farm again. Some of his friends, including his best friend Obiorika, comes to visit him and gives him some of the financial gains from his farm in his home village. But it's here that Okonkwo learns from his friend about the missionaries have arrived, the white missionaries. And at first the villagers kill the first missionary. They're not sure what to make of him. They kill him. But then, of course, more missionaries come, and they set up a church. And it seems that one of Okonkwo's sons, Nwoye, he seems to be under the spell of these Christian missionaries, and he converts himself to Christianity. There's tension between this new church and the tribe. Indeed, Okonkwo disowns his son because of his conversion. Then Okonkwo, at the end of this part, throws a great banquet for the people of his mother village before he returns home after his 7-year exile. Now in part three, Okonkwo comes back to a village very different from the one he left. The missionaries have gained ground. Their church is growing in numbers and in influence. The old religion seems to be going by the wayside. The white men are bringing their own courts and justice system with them as well, and indeed the schools set up as well. And the church and the missionaries and generally this Western culture, this white culture coming into the land, coming into Umuofia, has created a big splash, a big influence, whilst the Okonkwo seems to have lost any sense of relevance. He seems to be a shadow of who he was, and this pains him greatly. Now there's quite a friendly missionary who sets the school up, and he's quite popular, but then someone takes over from him who is more of a fire and brimstone type of preacher, and he's denouncing the traditional religion of the people as demonic, etc. And that causes a great rift in the village, and the church is attacked and destroyed. Now Okonkwo and some of the main people of the village are imprisoned for destroying the church, but eventually he's set free, and they have a meeting in the village about what's going on, about the problem of their society falling apart. Things Fall Apart, remember, is the name of the book. And the messenger comes from the commissioner who's in charge, and Okonkwo kills him. Okonkwo runs away, and in the aftermath of this murder, Okonkwo is found hanging from a tree. He's committed suicide. So what are we to make of Things Fall Apart? Well, first of all, the main character, Okonkwo, is not necessarily a nice man, a likeable man, but you very much feel invested in him in this book because of who he is and his standing in the community and his sense of pride. And you do feel for him when everything just falls apart around him, how devastating it must be for him. And he seems to feel it more keenly than most. The book's very much about an old way of life being somewhat abruptly taken over by a newer way of life, an uninvited way of life even. Not to say that the old religion of the natives was a bed of roses, of course, because some of it sounds pretty horrific in this book, leaving twins out to die in the jungle because they're considered demonic. Some of the way the women are treated in the villages, the sense of justice requiring innocent blood to be spilled. I mean, the customs and rituals, many of them are quite barbaric. But even so, when the missionaries come in, there is a sense that many of them do it incredibly insensitively and roughly and in an offhand, condescending way. Now, like all great works of art, it's not a black and white thing. The new converts bring much joy and hope as well, life to the community. But there's very much a sense of a fading of an old way of life in this book. And the sense of tragedy at the end when you realise that this proud man has killed himself is palpable, and it's something you realise he must have done as an extreme last resort, because to kill oneself is a dishonourable thing to do, certainly in the traditional religion of these people. So it's a heartbreaking end to the book, but it is a powerful novel which speaks a lot about power and colonialism. But it's not a book, I don't think, which we can say these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It's more mixed than that. Please check out the slideshow afterwards, and thank you for watching. Bye.